was watching a TED Talk this morning from a paleontologist who was approaching the development of the human brain. And without labeling it so, also the human mind. But as a Buddhist, I find these programs fascinating. They're based on the physical world, but her study was about the onset of religion. Hi, thanks for being here. Thank you for your practice, for being Buddhist or being Buddhist curious. This is a vast resource, about nearing 1,000 videos on this channel alone. The videos on this channel are immediately transposed to this channel on Odyssey.com, another hosting service for videos, just as a backup. Some of you may use Odyssey more than you do YouTube, so just information for you. You've seen the links in the video, the website, threefoldlotus.com. That's all free. It's in simple HTML, so there's no collecting of information or whatever your browser's trying to tell you. It's just an old HTML site, but I'm constantly updating it with more free information. On the core studies page, you'll find lots and lots of PDFs and so forth that you can download on basic questions about Buddhism. We all have them from the get-go and later on, and there's probably 100 different documents there easily. It keeps growing. And of course, there's the bookstore, which helps to support the efforts of keeping this channel going, as well as digital representation of one of the final mandalas Nichiren created. And we're talking about that as we're talking through this author's encapsulation or biography of Nichiren's life and his development of his doctrine. And so what was I saying about this paleontologist? Well, she's very quickly, I'm not going to repeat everything, but all of us have had basic science class and in school. And so when I say, there was the development of human beings went from skulls that were sloped right back from the brow to much more development of the frontal lobes, where still to this day, scientists are saying that's where our more modern abilities to think come from. From that, she starts talking about tool making and how utilitarian that is. And there's a certain aspect of visualization occurring some 200,000 years ago in human development. Where certainly, it makes sense, you would have to visualize a pointy thing in this rock that you're smacking in order to work toward making it. So it's interesting. Okay, I see that. Rather than just running around grabbing stuff to eat or killing it or, mating or finding shelter, basic animal behavior, there's a transition to a brain that thinks more of things that aren't there in order to achieve them. Abstraction, you might say. Well, that's an interesting point. Because as a Buddhist, it makes me smile that what she's actually identifying is the emergence of the mind. You can say the brain is doing this with storing information and abstracting information. But what part of the brain is abstract? That abstraction is a foretelling, a conceptual experience of something that isn't there yet or has been there in the past, and now we want to take actions in order to make it happen. And I think of Shakyamuni coming to this thought as he's looking for answers. This is very rudimentary to the way we operate in the world. Now, she wants to take that and put the label religion on it, or even talked about a God spot in the brain, which she debunked, to her credit. But it got me to thinking, isn't that exactly what Shakyamuni, what Siddhartha, his enlightenment was about understanding this basic samsaric, because samsara isn't a place, it's an experience of a place. And the way we experience the world, our life, our self-life, right? Life writ large versus me, is our that primeval attachment to thingifying. Not the thing, but thingifying, abstracting thing. Once I worked so hard to make this spearhead mine. Right? I mean, primordial attachment of self-directed creation. That's important. We don't think about that kind of thing today, modern people that we are. That simple accomplishment is multiplied quadrillion, zillion, googillion times a day now by commercials and distractions, and I must purchase, and I must have, and I don't use that anymore, and that's not valuable, but this is, and you are valuable, and you are not, and I am, right? It's just explosion, right? So why am I talking about all this? Well, my friends, if you watched the last video, or if you didn't, Nichiren, at this point in his life, by this author's great conceptualization, is at that moment of time where, and he's still on Sado now, he's considering, how can I take that samsaric brain, primeval mind, if you will, that Shakyamuni identified so clearly, and I can use it to lead it directly to an experience of complete equanimity. Not only me, that's still there, yeah, rudimentary, but to experience life, capital letters, universe, world, earth, plants, you, me, animals, all at once, occurring, experiencing in its amazing flow of energy, without the need for ownership, retention. Just no need for that. It's happening. Just join the flow. You don't need to row your boat. You are the boat. You are the water on which the boat floats. Just be in it completely. Everything, instead of competing for attention, becomes instantiation and momentum through time-space. How do I get the mind to experience that? Because that experience, though it's not separate from this samsaric experience, puts this samsaric experience into a much kinder, beautiful cooperative state. It's no longer something to be stressed about, have anxiety about. It's all sparks, right? How do you do that? How do you convince a human attached samsaric mind? You could talk all day long about this abstraction, Buddha-ness, isn't it amazing, isn't it? But how do you experience it? Just without having to figure it out. Just, boom. Kind of like the first time you put cotton candy in your mouth. You can wrap all the words and pictures and, right? Nothing equals that instant fibrous melt in your mouth, the sugar rush. Yeah, even these words, you know, if you've ever had cotton candy, you go, yeah. The experience of it, it's singular. How do I do that with what Shakyamuni has been teaching, what I so understand from all my study? How do I make John the plumber experience it without spending 70 years of study? Right? How do I do it? This is what's been preoccupying Nichiren now. Because it's no longer just about him, Nichiren, understanding. It's about him, Nichiren, Bodhisattva, desperately wanting the people he talks to stop looking at him like, huh? And start looking at him like, yes, I get it. How do you do that? And he's recognizing, as this author is talking about it, how humans always do that. How do I know what cotton candy feels like to experience it? Well, I get some and I stick it in my head. Wait a minute. There's a clue here. I'm sorry I just made an analogy between that mandala behind me and cotton candy. But, truly, the cotton candy we're talking about isn't this or that or the mandala. It's that it's in your mind. It's in your experience. How do I pry that door open? Well, first let's identify that door. Let's call it the most important door. The Go Hanzan. It's in the mind. It's not on that piece of paper. We're getting to it, aren't we? So let's continue. This is still quoting Nichiren now. When the Buddha Tahoe sat in the treasure tower, side by side with the Tathagata Shakyamuni, the two Buddhas lifted up the banner of the Lotus of the Perfect Truth and declared themselves to be the commanders. How can this be a deception? Rhetorical question. Indeed, they have thereby agreed to raise us mortal beings, minds, samsaric beings, to the rank of Buddha. How can we attain that experience? It's in the very story of the Lotus Sutra. I, Nichiren, was not present there in the congregation, and yet there was no reason to doubt the statements of this text. In other words, he's talking about that abstraction facility of our minds. We weren't there when the Lotus was taught by Shakyamuni almost 3,000 years ago. But by reading his story about it, we can abstract it. We can sense ourselves. What would it be like to be floating in the sky watching this spectacle? But that's still just abstraction. It's storytelling, yeah? How do we experience it? This is the crux of Nichiren's discourse and analytic process, yeah? Or is it possible that I was there? Well, This is that time shift of Buddhism. What we're talking about isn't something that actually happened in space-time, the samsaric reality. What we're talking about is something that's happening in the space-time of your mind, which is constantly happening moment to moment. We're starting to chip away at what this is about again. Buddhism, about the mind. The mind which is timeless. I attained Buddhahood on September 24th. Baloney. Buddhahood is always there. It's a matter of experiencing it, and that's always now. There's no date, there's no timestamp on it. It's about experiencing it when you open that door. And that door is mental, not samsaric. It's not in the brain. The brain is an apparatus, certainly, that helps us to manifest this mind. Don't get the two confused. And this paleontologist this morning was talking about that moment when human beings had evolved to be able to grow this mind. Common mortal that I am, Nichiren says, I'm not well aware of the past, yet in the present I am unmistakably the one who is realizing the Lotus of Truth. This story of the Lotus, it's identifying me personally. I know it's not about me. I know it's not about a man named Nichiren. It's about a facility of mind that I am fully experiencing. How do I get you to experience what I'm experiencing? Because it's well defined in Shakyamuni's teaching. How do I do it? How do I do it? Then in the future, I'm surely destined to participate in the communion of the holy place. The holy place. In other words, this story of the Lotus about self-realizing Buddha-ness, I'm living it as a man on earth, samsaric, just as you should be able to do the exact same thing. Surely all of us will be identified, there's samsara again, by this story. In other words, we all have the capacity to do exactly the same thing as Shakyamuni described so many thousands of years ago. This is not a changing thing. This is an experience of all. Inferring the past from the present and the future, I should think that I must have been present at the communion in the sky. There's that slippery time thing again. He's just identifying that he is truly living this very teaching of Shakyamuni's in his present day. The present assures the future destiny, and the future destiny is inconceivable without its cause in the past. Another justification. He's speaking to his audience just like Shakyamuni spoke to his. He knows the Japanese mind. He's trying not to lose them by going woo. You say no, it's not woo. It's right here in the real. The past, present, and future cannot be isolated from one another. Bingo. As much as we talk about the past and the future, they all happen in this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. They don't exist anywhere else. You can say, well, I used to live in that house. Fine. But the idea that you're mentally thinking about living in that house 40 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is a current thought. You're not projecting yourself into the past when you say that, right? It's a recollection. You're reconstructing something that is no longer. You don't live there anymore. That's a key eye-opener on how we experience life. When I say we drag the past along with us, that's what I'm saying. That past, it's gone. But we insist on keeping it here and dwelling upon it. And Shakyamuni says, stop doing that. It's gone. Look at the beautiful moment you're in. When I meditate, Nichiren says, on things, my joy has no limit. In spite of the miseries of the life of an exile. Right now he's talking in a third person, he's seeing himself. Because this isn't me. This exile, this is some provisional thing that's been done to Nichiren in the past. In this moment, I'm enlightened. I'm amazed at this whole thing happening to me, Nichiren, right now. And well, he would think that way because he's not in that shack anymore. He's being fed and clothed and housed. How did that happen? Simply on the merit of his experience and upholding of the experience as described in the Lotus Sutra. What an amazing realization. What an amazing realization for you and me. Tears in joy, tears in afflictions. I shed tears in thinking of the present perils and sufferings. My tears cannot be checked even in the midst of rejoicing over the destiny of Buddhahood that is before me. Because all of it, I release it from its oppressive stress, anxiety. It's just sparks. Whatever they might look like, seem like, whether they feel injurious or joyful, doesn't matter. I'm so amazed by being here now. This life, this whole process, it's unimaginable. And yet here I am experiencing it. Birds and insects cry and weep, but shed no tears. I, Nichiren, neither cry nor weep, yet no moment passes without tears of amazement. These are shed indeed not on account of any worldly matters, but for the sake of the lotus of truth. If this be so, these tears are drops of ambrosia. In this document, the truths most precious to me are written down. Read and read it again. Read into the letters and fix them into your mind. Once again, Nichiren is saying, join me in this experience, this mental awakening. And still, he's like, I got to do this with more than words, yeah? Thus, put your resolve in that supreme experience. Know that it's available to you right now to do it. Represented in a way unique in the whole world. Ever more strongly, I advise you to be firm in your resolve and to be under the protection of the threefold Buddhahood. Threefold Buddhahood, what is that? Manifest, body. Dharma, experience of it. And the incredible flush of reward of that experience. Remember the cotton candy? When your mouth explodes, experience that in your mind. March strenuously on in the ways of practice and learning. Could you have a more direct exhortation? Without practice and learning, the Buddhist practice is nullified. If you're not practicing constantly to awaken that Gohonzon in your mind, and supporting your enthusiasm, your inspiration, your resolve, your conviction, your confidence. Some of you may need to read every day, listen to the podcast, read whatever you need to keep feeding your conviction. Yes. Train yourself and also instruct others. A lot of people shy away when they hear that. Oh God, I got to teach this to others. I'm barely hanging on to it myself. That's okay. Because the more you make efforts for your enlightenment, the more you radiate that life condition all around you. It's going to happen. You're teaching Buddhism to others simply by doing it yourself. And the day will come when people come to you and demand an explanation, and you don't have to fabricate it. It's all here. That's the nice part about study. That's why I have that website with all that free information. They're like crib notes. Oh yeah, I can quote this or I can talk about this. They'll only have more questions. So what is the primary thing you need to remember? How did you get there? This is where that first step of courage that becomes, don't even need courage after you do it a few times. Come over to my place and chant with me for 5 minutes. Chant with you? Yes, say it with me. Na mu myo ho reng ge kyo. Say it. What is that? It's the fabric of the universe. It's the vibration of life. But you'll understand. You just need to do it for a few minutes. Come on, that's all. And we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. But to open that channel in your mind that can experience this clarity, this enlightenment, we have to do that first. Otherwise, the words, they're just words. They won't make sense. Is it a trance? Is it a hypnotic thing? No. Stop that. That's your human mind talking. I'm just talking about opening your potential. All right? I'm giving you words. You're going to say it in your own way, though. Be convinced that practice and learning are the fruits of resolve, or for resolve. So long as, and so far as, there is power in you, teach, if it be only a clause or a word of this text. And now Nichiren's going to tell you if you're hunting for words in the text. Namu myoho renge kyo. Namu myoho renge kyo. Sincerely and in reverence. This is Nichiren talking to you and me. That's what you teach. There's a postscript. Let me add. Herewith I have delivered to you the truths revealed to me, Nichiren. Precious truths are specially transmitted to you. What a mysterious dispensation. What an amazing piece of understanding, yeah? May I, Nichiren, be a kinsman of the bodhisattvas of the earth. 6 myriads of Ganga sands in number. You and I, the future bodhisattvas, we're them. All this I do with the sole aim of leading all men and women in this country, Japan, nay, the world, to the communion of those who utter Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Does not the scripture say, the text say, the sutra say, quote, the one called Jogyo, and the leaders of the bodhisattvas, and he, together with the 3 other leaders, is the leader in utterance. End quote. Utterance invocation of what? Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. It's so obvious. And yet there are scholars today who read the Lotus Sutra and think, this is such a circular self-graduate. Yep, because it's about the utterance. That you have become my student is indeed the result of a remote connection. Buddha-ness. Keep this letter carefully to yourself, for yourself. Know that I, Nichiren, have therein recorded the truths realized personally by myself. Bye for now. So the author steps in here. The above essays were the introduction to the revelation of that supreme experience in graphic representation. When he had thus expounded his thoughts, he undertook in the summer of 1273 the work of the revelation, the climax of his life work. The design was as he described above, and beneath were added 2 postscripts. On the right side, this is the great mandala which has never before appeared throughout the whole Jambudvipa world during the 2,220 and more years elapsed since Buddha's extinction, right? And they're on that mandala. And on the left side, having been sentenced to death on the 12th day of the 9th month in the 8th year of Bunei, and having been later exiled afar to the island of Sado on the 8th day of the 7th month in the 10th year of the same, Nichiren makes this representation for the first time, end quote. Whatever Nichiren's followers may claim about this mandala and the postscripts, and whatever criticism modern scholars may make, it remains an undoubted fact that Nichiren attached the greatest importance to his work as being the pivotal point of his life. After this begins the last part of his life, the consummation and preparation for the perpetuation of his doctrine, in accordance with the threefold division of the scripture mentioned above. Let me conclude this chapter by quoting another letter written at the same time with the, quote, reality as it is, end quote. It is entitled The Realization of Buddha's Prophecies, end quote. That's his translation of it. And in an additional witness to Nichiren's firm conviction of his mission, as he now understood it. Quoting Nichiren, what a great fortune it is to extinguish in this life the errors we have accumulated from eternity by degrading the truth. Degrading being our samsaric life of attachment, really misses the grandeur of life. It's not that it's bad. It's not that it's evil. It's only bad or evil in the context of what is truly available to our modern minds. A much more profound and engaged understanding of this process moment to moment, free of the baggage of retaining and ownership. It's not that ceases to play a role in our samsaric life. It just ceases to be our focus. Because with our minds, we needn't be held down by that. That's just rudimentary function. Yeah. What a joy to serve Buddha-ness, the Buddha Shakyamuni, whom we had thought never to see or hear. This and an embodiment, Shakyamuni, only as a representation of what he availed us to, this experience of life, moment to moment, right now. Let these be my earnest desires. First of all, to persuade the rulers who have persecuted me, to announce to the Lord Shakya of the names of those of my followers who have assisted me, and to recommend the highest good to my parents who gave me birth before they die. I have seen as in a vision the spirit of the apparition of the treasure tower. The treasure tower that we all are. By living. The text says, quote, to grasp the world mountain, Sumeru, and to throw it to the innumerable lands of Buddhas in various directions. Right? Go grab in your hand Mount Everest and just toss it. It's ridiculous, but even this is not a thing impossible, but a thing most difficult would be adequately to preach this teaching in the degenerate ages after the Buddha's extinction. So don't be too hard on yourself. Nichiren is recognizing that to convince others of something this amazing and meaningful is not going to happen readily. It's going to take some effort. But where does that effort start? Right? It's not that you should be running around conking people over the head. Do this. You do it. That is the hammer. That is the initial influence. And you won't have to convince others. They'll come to you. Everybody wants enlightenment. They just, most, if not all, have no clue to even look for it. But they'll see it, they'll recognize it in you because it's innate. It resonates in their lives. They just don't know how to actualize it. The great master Dengyo said, quote, Shakyamuni has shown a clear distinction between the shallow, which is easy to grasp, and the profound, which is difficult to receive, to get. And it should be the ambition of a great man, leaving the shallow to take up the profound. That's simple to understand, right? Don't we want to be better than we are all the time? The great Master Tendai promulgated in obedient resolve in Lord Shakya the doctrines of the Lotus of Truth in the land of Cathay. And our school, having its center at Mount Hiei, is doing the same in Japan, in accordance with the tradition of the Tendai, for the sake of the Lotus of Truth, end quote. This was Dengyo. By the way, I've been looking hither and far for some academic, some scholarly discussion of Dengyo Saicho's life. Damned if I can find anything. If you know of, even on forgotten books, they don't have anything on it. They focus on a lot of other stuff. But if you happen to know, please email me. Let me know what you found. All right. In closing, and we'll end here before we start a new chapter, Nichiren continues, I, Nichiren, a native of Awa, am most probably the man whose mission it is, succeeding to the heritage of the three masters, to propagate the doctrine of the Lotus of Truth throughout the ages of the latter law. Now another is added to the three, and we shall be called the four great masters of the three countries. So he really identifies his life with the story of the four great leaders of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, you and I. But even though he's visualized and described the mandala, I guess you could say we've gotten the whole structure. We know what he's trying to embody in the mandala. So this is where he's investing his perfect reflector, right? Something that we can't dissect with our brains, although we can, but that each character, each mark on this mandala is meant to enliven the story, the pathway to our own enlightenment. It's not about the people, and it's about the concepts, the thinking that dig into our mind, not brain, into that Gohonzon spot of experience that we can break through into Buddha-ness, yeah? Our experience of life moment to moment, rather than just cataloging our database of stuffing, our warehouse, right? Next chapter, release and retirement, further confirmation of his resolve, his practice. So we'll start that chapter in the next video. I hope you're enjoying this. I hope you're getting something out of it. I don't see how well, my experience is, it's visceral for me as I read these words. Yes, yes. If you're not quite there yet, that's okay. You'll get there. We all have our own little, maybe something I said will work on your mind. Maybe something you heard of Nichiren's and this author will make you reconsider something you hadn't really considered before. Whatever your insights, whatever your aha moments, don't doubt yourself. When you have those insights, give yourself a hug. Yes, this is making sense. I get it. I got a glimpse. When that happens, I like to go and chant to reinforce it, to not lose that moment of realization, to keep it going, so that I can apply it to everything. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for your practice. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's so important. And those of you who are able to support buying books or sending money through Patreon or PayPal, deep, deep appreciation. Thank you. I am going to start using some of those funds to build a desktop video editing platform so I can make better, more reliable videos. This laptop's been doing pretty good, you got to admit. We've made hundreds of videos on this laptop, but I hear it making strange noises and it's already showing its wear. So bigger and better, just like always, right? With our lives. So again, just thank you. Keep your practice strong. Take care of your health. Be kind to yourself. Be Buddha. Oh yeah, that's easy to say. I'll see you in the next one. I can't wait to see what this next part of this biography says. But for me, what we just finished reading, this last few videos, that was the crux of my own practice. It's just amazing to read it in this, 120-year-old document. Pretty cool. Take care. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now. Myo.